Hello and Assalamualaikum. My name is Ibtisam Othman. Before we get into the issue, I'll tell you a bit about myself. I was born in Kuala Terengganu, and it is also where I am living right now. I went to Sekolah Syekh Abdul Malik during my high school years, and then I got a place in UiTM Foundation of Law. When I graduated from there, I decided to continue my law degree in UNIZA. My only hope in studying LLB is that I'll graduate to be a lawyer that will undoubtedly contribute to our legal system. Now, the issue I will be tackling is whether the MCO could cause a breach of contract. Regarding contract that has been affected by the MCO, our government has already enacted an act to solve this matter, which is the COVID-19 Act 2020. Section 7 of the Act itself had stated that if the contracts were unable to perform due to the measures prescribed by the MCO, considering that the contracts fall under the categories specified in the schedule, then the parties of the contract cannot exercise their rights under said contract. In other words, the contract will cease to be valid. Now, what are the contracts that has been specified in the schedule of this Act? Those contracts mentioned in the schedule of Part 2 of the Act, which the contract are such as construction work, lease or tenants, professional service, contract that has provision regarding accommodation, social gathering, and so on. Section 5 of the Act also mentioned that this particular part of the Act regarding contracts under MCO can only be operated from 18 March 2020 until 31st December 2020. So, in conclusion, if a contract was unable to perform due to the measures prescribed by the MCO, and the contract also falls under the category set by the schedule of Part 2 of this Act, also pursuant to Section 5 of the Act, the contract did not exceed the time limit set upon by it, which is 18 March until 31st December 2020. Then the MCO would not cause the breach of contracts, as the contract itself would cease to be valid. But what happens if the contract does not fall under the categories mentioned in the schedule, or if the MCO happens during the time that exceeded the limit mentioned in the Act, which is after the 31st December, like what's happening right now? Well, it all comes down to the impossibility of performance, which is frustration of contract. Now, the doctrine of frustration only applies when there is a change in the circumstance which renders the contract to be legally or physically impossible to perform, and it is not due to the fault of either party. Frustration contracts are invalid, thus there would be no breach. So, let's say there's a contract on holding a concert after the 31st December of 2020. Then all of a sudden, there's an MCO. Holding a concert at that time would make it very much impossible to do so legally. Thus, the doctrine of frustration applies and renders the contract invalid. So, to conclude, the MCO cannot breach the contract because the contracts will be invalid if the contract fulfills the requirements set by Part 2 of the COVID Act 2020, or if the doctrine of frustration applies. I hope that answer will satisfy you, and thank you very much for listening.